This is the Big Fish Cares Podcast. Big Fish Cares Podcast. And here's your host, Benny Fisher.
Well, we got an amazing show today. I know I say that every single episode, but today I'm really excited about this one because usually I have a lot of guests that really are probably more like me in the way I do business. The guest I have today, you know, you guys have been hearing me talk about this integrator thing, and yeah, he is a integrator. We're going to find out. He's got a little visionary in him too. My special guest today is Tomas Keenan. I've been following this guy on Facebook for a while now. Tomas is best known for his humble beginnings and his lengthy career as a custom car audio installer. Can't wait to hear how he went from custom car audio installer to being top CEO at one of the biggest companies around. And after co-founding an industry-leading GPS tracking and dashboard camera installation company, he grew that to a seven-figure business. He moved on in the coaching space, and that's where everyone that I know knows of him as a high-level business and success coach for other industry leaders, business owners. He only works with the best of the best, people that refuse to be average. They're crushing 7+ figures in business. His success as an elite business coach led him to move his family from New York City to Dallas, Texas, to focus full-time on his newest company, Step It Up Academy. And his expertise and vast experience have repeatedly put him on the top industry magazine pages. He's been featured in Forbes, Mobile Electronics Magazine, CE Outlook, CEO Blog Nation, Fit Small Business, The Startup Growth, The Goodmen Project, and several blogs, in addition to countless podcasts. Tomas is also a sought-after public speaker, two-time best-selling author, and Step It Up entrepreneur podcast host. He has interviewed industry leaders, influencers, high-level business and success coaches, business owners, and entrepreneurs who are impacting their communities and the world at large. He states the key to his success is making progress every day, regardless of how small it may be, small steps forward daily. Tomas, welcome to the show. That was a hell of an introduction.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you reading that. Yeah, it's been a hell of a ride, dude. And like, I don't know about you, but I don't feel like I've done shit yet. I don't know, just kind of the way we're wired.
Just getting started.
Yeah, I got plenty ahead of me still too.
We're cool. Just getting started. So let's take it all the way back to the beginning. Where'd you grow up at? Long
Island, New York.
So I can hear that a little bit in your voice.
Yeah,
still.
You probably can.
Yeah.
You can hear it more so when I get aggravated. Or let me rephrase. We'll call it animated. We'll call it animated.
Yeah.
If I get a little pissed off, it comes out pretty quick. And I've done my hardest to kind of soften it a bit because it's funny. My in-laws are here now from New York. They flew in today for we're recording this right before Thanksgiving, so they're going to be here for Thanksgiving. And they walk in the door, and I could hear it instantaneously. Whereas when I was living up there, I didn't know. Couldn't really tell. But it's something that I've tried to kind of repress a little bit. Not because I'm embarrassed of where I'm from. It's just like it's so thick.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you probably don't want every conversation, but where are you from? How are you doing that? Like, yeah. So, I don't know if you can tell, I'm originally from Canton, Ohio. I moved to Pittsburgh. I probably have that little Midwestern, tone. I'm sure everybody has a little bit of a tone, but Long Island really stands out, right? Long Island, Jersey, even like Connecticut, Massachusetts, like they all have their own distinct accents as you roll up the New England coast.
Yeah, they do. And when you're from that area, you can pick out the nuances between all of them very quickly.
So when you grew up, like, did you grow up in like middle class America? Were you wealthy? Like, how'd you grow up?
Yeah, definitely middle class. Definitely not wealthy. I was single mom raised me. Wow. My parents got divorced when I was 4. And my mom was in sales in corporate America. She worked for National Car Rental, and which is pretty cool. I wound up learning a lot from her without realizing I was learning a lot from her, which is kind of the way things happen a lot.
Yeah. Did you ever listen to any tapes or any CDs or anything like that about sales or anything?
No.
My dad did. So I had a Zig Ziglar tape in the back of the car one time.
That's cool.
I would listen to him.
Yeah, she was real old school. She went in there and got trained up from them and whatnot. And she was responsible for closing multi-million-dollar accounts. This is back in like the late 80s. She would go into a business and she would close them on Like she'd go into another big company and say, hey, sign with us here at National Car Rental. It's going to be like, a $2 million deal for your company for the year. But every bit of your travel for your team as they go out across the country for the remainder of the year is going to be booked through us. Right. So all the car rental options would come in-house to that one channel. So she had a pretty serious sales role for quite some time. And she busted her ass and basically enabled me to live a good middle-class lifestyle where I really didn't yearn for anything. Did I have everything I wanted? Hell fucking no. But not at all. But I wasn't starving ever. I always had a roof over my head. I always had clothes on my back, and I was well taken care of. And more importantly is the work ethic that she instilled in me, because I saw her out there busting her ass every day. And she wasn't easy on me, which I'm grateful for to this day.
Do you have siblings?
No, I'm a solo.
Oh, so wow.
That's kind of like, it's a trick question. So my dad wound up having, he got remarried, and I do have a half brother, but we didn't grow up in the same house. So if you ask me, do I have siblings? I'm going to say no, because I didn't grow up in the same house as somebody else.
You didn't grow up with a brother beating you up, or you having to take care of another brother. You're kind of like, you're a lone wolf. Mm-hmm. And I think that tells us a lot about, how you can you've made the come up in life, and how you've kind of just always just been trying to search it out and trying to find it, because you didn't really have, you probably had some friends. The cool thing about growing up middle class, I grew up, I would say lower middle class in my younger days. Mm-hmm. And my parents got divorced when I was 5. My mom got remarried when I was 7. My stepdad worked in the union steel mill and started making more and more money. Mm-hmm. So I think we ended up middle class by the time I was in high school. But I went to a school district where, there's poor kids and then there's rich kids. Yeah. And I got to see, I knew I wasn't destitute. We always had food. We always had new pair. I had one new pair of Jordans every year, but that was it. We got certain amount of money for school clothes. We got presents on birthday and Christmas. I didn't get nothing else handed to me. Lots of hard work. So it was kind of fun being in the middle, because you can kind of see both. You can still have appreciation and gratitude. Yeah. What kind of jobs did you get out of high school? Did you go to college?
No, I think I nailed 6 college credits before I threw the towel in.
How'd your mom feel about that?
She was so pissed off, dude. She was so pissed off. But my mom's college educated, and most of her siblings are. She's one of 5.
Yeah, you're like a disgrace to I
really was. She had high hopes for me, and I definitely ruined that. She was really pissed. So I wound up going to a community college. My grades were awful. I barely graduated high school, and it's not that I don't like learning. I actually love learning. I just couldn't stand the structure of school and the bullshit they were trying to teach us. And I was like, I'm never going to use this shit. I remember teachers telling me, you're never going to have a calculator in your back pocket to do these equations. Well, fuck you. I've got a supercomputer in my back pocket now, motherfucker. How about them apples? Right? Which I still find funny to this day. But that was kind of it. I guess I was around the age of 16, and I was hanging out with some older kid, and I fell in love with car audio. I had family members who were in the car business, auto mechanics, detailing, auto body, spending time with them, working on cars, doing the traditional trades there. And I was hanging out with this kid who was a bit older, who was a musician, and he had an audio system in his car. And I was like, dude, I have no idea you could even do this. I didn't even know it was a thing. So I always liked music growing up. Couldn't play it for shit, but I always liked music.
Okay.
So I was like, I can put car stereo and cars together and do cool shit and all the trades that I like, because I like working with my hands. I can kind of mix all of those trades into one and do all of this cool shit like metal fab, welding, woodwork, working with plexiglass and body fillers and fiberglass and electrical at the same time. It's all right, I'm in. And I basically jumped in head first and went and I started teaching myself all I could. And I got to a point where I couldn't teach myself anymore. And right after I dropped out of community college, I wound up going to trade school in Boston, Massachusetts for about 90 days to learn from some of the best in the country.
That's cool. How old are you?
I'm 40. I think I'm 42.
42.
42 or 40.
I'm 41. What year were you born?
79. Once you get past a certain age, you're like, I don't know how to live anymore.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out generation. So, I'm 41, so you must be at least 42, maybe pushing 43.
I'm 42 or 43, one of them.
pushing 43 or soon, probably, if not already. So we grew up in the same era. So I remember that growing up in the 90s, right? Like, hip hop, right, was coming out. All the kids were buying first of all, we couldn't afford like new cars. So everybody had these old used cars. They put these big wheel spinners on them, load up the trunk with a big sound system. The bass was so loud that you couldn't even hear the music. It was just thump, 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 right? And then there was a lot of different places that you could go get the stuff done at. I remember there was one right on the way from my house to the high school. We'd have to drive by. It looked so cool. There was garage bays. Everybody was hanging out there. I wasn't into that stuff, but like I could see why that would be cool if you were into it, because it's like a plethora for like all the stuff that you just mentioned. So you turned it into a passion, and then you turned it into a career. It sounded like, or at least a job at the time.
It was a job at the time for sure, and then it wound up transitioning into a career. I went, and after I got out of trade school, I went and worked for one of the top shops on Long Island. And, like you said, this was late 90s. It was 1999 I got out of trade school. And, hip-hop was at its peak, especially on the East Coast at that point in time. We were doing work for all those big-name dudes. And worked there for about almost 3 years. And finally, one day I got to the point where I figured I just knew more than him. And we had a little exchange of words. And wound up going on my own separate way, and I think I was 21 at the time, and I basically was like, fuck you, dude, I'm out. And I thought I knew more about business than he did, and I didn't know a damn thing. I knew how to do the work, like the actual technical work, more so than he did, because I just come out of these crazy-ass fancy trade schools with all this new knowledge, and I was just yearning to go put it into practice. And part of the problem was he wasn't allowing me to go put it into practice. And from a business standpoint, I now understand why.
Because he didn't have the skills to be able to handle your growth, and put you in a system to foster your. And he didn't know what he didn't know. He didn't know what he didn't know. You were young. Listen, we were all young, right? Like we all thought, like we all had like all this testosterone and energy, and we had all these skills. We just want to set the world on fire, right? We got all these ideas, right? And then the next thing you know, our manager or our boss has their own self-limiting beliefs. They only know what they know. And then we get put into that box, and it feels rigid, right? Like it feels clunky. I mean, I don't know about you, but I got fired or quit probably like 15 jobs in my 20s. So I was pretty stubborn because I worked in the car dealership. And as soon as I figured out a couple of things, I thought I knew more than my manager. And then my manager also didn't want to take the time to explain why I didn't know.
Yeah.
He just said, shut up, kid. Do what I tell you to do.
This is how it's done.
This is how it's done. This is how we always done it, And they changed the pay plan on you every 6 months. And just as you were getting good, then they would, take it out of you. But so what'd you do after? So when you got this, did you start your own business then? Is that what I'm assuming? These all these stories, just so if you're listening right now, you've heard a million of these stories on the podcast. They all kind of end the same way, right? You either fire or quit, and then you start your own business, and you don't know how to do it. So how'd you do it?
Poorly.
Well, come on, tell us some of the funny stories, though.
Oh, man. So my first business was called Exquisite Mobile Electronics, and it was a custom car audio installation facility. I quit that job with $300 cash to my name.
That's what I was going to ask you. How much cash did you have?
Yeah, $300.
What'd you do with all your money? Spend it on equipment?
I wasn't really making money, man. Like you got to understand something. I mean, dude, when I left, I think I was making like $700 a week cash. Right. Yeah. And here I am. I'm a highly trained technician making, not even $1,000 a week. And, I'm 21 at the time. So my pastime is to go out and drink beer with my buddies. There goes all the fucking money, by the way. Well,
and you were the rich kid because all your other buddies are probably in college. They're trying to please their parents. So when you showed up to campus, you got a pocket full of money. You're probably balling out of control. Everybody's looking up to you.
Yep. You nailed it.
Oh, yeah.
So there really wasn't much left, and I had no sense financially what the hell was going on at that point. So $300 cash to my name, a handful of tools, a chip on my shoulder, and I basically went to work in my mom's driveway. And I chose the winter to quit. The middle of the fucking winter. Yeah, great.
Yeah, especially where you live. Yeah, nice and cold.
So dealing with, snowstorms here and there and bad weather and whatnot, I kind of suffered through the winter and it made some things happen. The following spring, I wound up moving in and renting a bay from a body shop. And then a couple months or a year or so later, I got my own place. But it was 5 years of me kind of just figuring it the fuck out and failing miserably along the way.
So did your mom ever give you any cash or anything? To
Oh, yeah. I took money from everybody. My mom,
really?
my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, friends and family. Anybody who was willing to give me money to keep the doors open and functional, I took it.
And what'd you do with that money? Did it always go into the business, or did some of it go to like keep the lifestyle?
No, I didn't give a shit about the lifestyle. Honestly, didn't. To me, and this is one of the biggest failures I had with that first business, biggest lessons learned. I put every bit of energy, resource, time, commitment of myself into the business, nothing else. So I let everything else in my life fall to the wayside. I'm talking about relationships. I'm talking about health and fitness. I'm talking about mental sanity. If it wasn't for the business, it did not fucking matter. Now,
so how's your girlfriend and your mom, two of the biggest, supporters?
My girlfriend used to come and date me at the shop.
Wow, and she's your wife today.
She's my wife. I
tell you, I need to have her on the podcast. She's the one we need to be talking to. Where's Mrs. Keenan at?
Yeah, she's
the saint.
You ain't kidding, man. You ain't kidding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be a whole nother show because that's impressive.
Yeah.
When did you hire your first person? How many years were you in?
I wasn't in that long. I was probably under a year.
And what person did you hire?
I hired a helper, like a technician, another installer.
Yeah, like somebody like help plug stuff in and put stuff together.
Yeah, like, dude, go help me build this. Go make this. Go run these wires, kind of thing. Go run this errand.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what I should have him do and not do.
You didn't know how to delegate and elevate.
No way. Dude, I was so OCD at that point in my life and such a perfectionist that nobody could do it as good as I could. And that was the truth. Right. And that's how everyone's going to think if you're that, if you need to hold everything that close to you doing it and you pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, you'll never change your mindset. Right?
You didn't let go of the vine.
Oh, no. No. It took a lot of fucking years for me to actually let go of that vine. And it wasn't until my second company where I realized the bigger picture and that I needed to let go of that vine if we were ever going to grow and scale and if I was going to replace myself. And, that was a transition. So 5 years in the first company, fucked everything up. Had no idea. I even had to pay sales tax. I was a retail car audio shop collecting money from people. I had no idea that sales tax was even a thing until the first quarter comes in and the accountant walks in. And this is back in the day your accountant used to come to you, by the way.
Yeah.
Right in the ledger.
Shoot, now you can barely get him to respond to an email or a Zoom.
It's a pain point in my life, sir.
Yeah.
So I had no idea sales tax was due. So that was like, oh shit, I owe this many thousands of dollars to the state. Great. Learn that lesson. Close that sucker down after 5 years.
So let's talk about that real quick before you just gloss over it. So what was don't be glossing over that. I want to hear did you sell it? Did you just did it go bankrupt? How many employees did you have? Like how much revenue was coming in?
I had 5 employees. And I had an offer from somebody. I wound up taking the offer because I saw the writing on the wall. I just was afraid to admit, not only to myself, but those around me, that I had failed. And I still held on to it, even though I went to work for somebody else, which is fucking crazy. Went to work for this guy, and like 2 months into it, I pulled the plug completely. And I wound up spending just about 3 years working for that guy. And that was what I needed. That's what I needed
because you needed like a job that you could be like have some sanity in, right?
Yeah. So
some stability.
It took a lot of the pressure off of me because I didn't know what I didn't know when it came to payroll and managing people.
Did you get married yet? When did you get married?
No. Not for years.
So your girlfriend was still hanging on this whole time.
Dude, a long time.
Holy cow! No
wonder it was 10 years before we got married.
Yeah, well, I mean, you weren't ready. Obviously, if you weren't ready for business, you weren't ready to get married, right?
I have my head so far up my ass.
Well, at least listen. This is what I love here. This is what I love about people like me and Thomas now. Like we're aware now. Like we're aware. Like we can look back and that was not good. No, that wasn't good. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that was not good. But now, through awareness, we can actually help other people, right?
Bingo.
We sound like the old guys now.
We are.
Like when the 25-year-olds are like, hey, I want to make unlimited income and I want to retire. Like when I ask them what their why is, I want unlimited income and I want to retire. I'm like, first of all, entrepreneurs don't retire. Second of all, unlimited income isn't a number. I need a number.
Yeah.
Like let's start somewhere so we can work backwards. But so what was that like? Did you have to swallow any pride? Did you have to was it embarrassing to your girlfriend, to your mom, like to the employees? Like what was that like? What was that feeling?
I'll put it into perspective for you. Here's a little bit of ego. Okay. So imagine being I was between the age of 21 and I think 26 when that business was operational, right? Let's call it being 23 years old, 24 years old. You go to some party or whatnot, a barbecue, whatnot, and somebody you meet for the first time asks you what you do. And as someone in their early 20s, you have the ability to turn around and say, I own my own business. Right? It's like pound your chest a little bit.
I'm the CEO.
Good. Right. It's like we don't make money, but you don't need to know that.
And no one ever asked for the balance sheet or the profit and loss statement when you're at a party.
Yep. So it was always like this thing that stroked my own ego, which was like, oh, cool, yeah, I own a business. And people were blown away. Like, dude, you're 20-something years old, 21, 22, 23 years old. You own a business? It's fucking awesome. And the biggest the biggest piece of humble pie I had to eat was when I actually did throw the towel in. I went to work for somebody, and now you go to a barbecue or an event, you meet somebody, and they ask you, hey, what do you do? And I could no longer say, hey, I'm Tom, the business owner. I got to say, hey, I'm Tom, the 12-volt manager at so-and-so store.
Just when you say that, I feel bad for you that you had to say that. But did you find new friends though? Because a lot of times what happens is we'll avoid the friends, or the friends will avoid us because now we're not cool anymore. No. And we have to kind of find a new sector. So you guys still have the same people you're hanging out with.
Yeah, man. My close group of friends at that point in time in my life, they didn't give a shit.
That's cool.
They stuck by me through it, thick and thin, and they helped out tremendously.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wound up going back to work for this dude for 3 years. He's still a dear friend to this day. And it was exactly what I needed. Because I was burned in business at that point. I swore to myself that I would never go and start another company for myself or be self-employed ever again at that point. And I went back to work for this guy for 3 years, learned a lot about business, like actually doing business. I learned more about the skill and the technical things I needed to become a better installer, right? Because that's truly where my passion was still, even at that time. And about 3 years into it, I had enough. I got the itch again. It was like, fuck,
well,
man.
I mean, because once you do the same thing over and over again, and when you said that thing about high school, when you sat there and you couldn't figure out I'm not going to need this. I thought the same way. I suffered. I don't know if suffered, but I have ADHD. Mm-hmm. Do you think you have any type? I know you said you have OCD.
Oh hell yeah!
So you think you have a little ADHD in you too?
Dude, my wife's a school psychologist. It's one of the reasons I have no idea why she's still with me.
Here's what I want to get to by the end of this podcast. I'm going to figure out how an integrator can be. I can see why they have OCD, but ADHD, I don't know how you fight the urges. We'll have to get into that because that's a very interesting trait that you have.
Yeah,
it's not very common for most of your typical integrators.
Yeah, I don't think I have a bad case of it.
Okay,
but I do get distracted pretty easily. But I'm not distracted and off in the rabbit hole for 3 hours like a lot of people who suffer bad.
Yeah, like my creative juices going, and I could even forget it's bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I need 15 integrators around me, surrounding me to not let me outside of the little bubble that I create for myself. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. So what'd you end up doing after that? What was the itch? You're what, 29 years old?
Yeah, I was 29.
What'd you do? 29. Did you go put your notice in and say, man, I got to go?
Yep, I did. So
that one, you partied as friends on that one.
Yeah. I took him out to breakfast and I sat him down and I was like, look, and that's how I like to do it, man. I don't like burning bridges. It's not my style. Mm-hmm. Took him out to breakfast and had a conversation with him. Told him, hey, man, I'm out. And I had just gotten married too at that point, literally a month before, and it was just time for a change. And I remember it was 2009. And if you look back in history, 2008 and beginning of 2009 was not a good time in the economy.
No.
And he looked at me, and he was very sincere, right? And this is someone I still consider a dear friend to this day, right? He was a naysayer in this instance, okay? He looked at me and he's like, I really wish you would have told me that you were going to like go become a fucking cop or something right now, and not tell me that you're going to go start a business in the middle of this shitstorm. And I was like, I tried the whole cop thing. I took all the damn tests, and they didn't call me. I guess I was a little too off my rocker. So,
wow.
Now I'm going back into business. But what we did, so I had a business partner around too. And we kind of started the business not knowing what the fuck we were going to do. We knew what we were going to do, but we didn't realize what it was going to turn into. So this dude, I knew him for a long time, and him and I worked at a couple different facilities together in the custom car audio business. And we started basically another company called Top Class Installations, and we were doing mobile installs. We would go to your house, to your office, and do your install work.
More service-based.
Yeah, more service-based.
A little bit more margin, right? Because you can create a little bit higher value, right?
Yeah. I'll show up to your house, and I'll charge you $100 more for that remote start than if you go off the block to, Joe Blow Car Stereo.
Cool.
But it's convenient because you don't have to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So started doing that, and we were also doing GPS tracking installations at that time, but not heavily. That wasn't our main focus. It was just another.
That's still way ahead
vertical.
of the time, man. I mean, for that stuff.
We had about 10 years in it already at that point. So my ex-business partner worked for one of the big name companies as an employee for a number of years. So we had a good leg into that industry because he had so many connections.
Heck yeah.
Through his employment over there, which was cool. That really helped springboard the business. And when we actually decided to get real and started to focus on the real niche, which was the tracking and then eventually dash cameras. But that was a massive learning curve for both of us. He had a failed business prior. I had a failed business prior, both in the same industry. We both had car audio stores. And the first 5 years of that company, we made every single mistake that we had made previously over again, multiple times.
Tell me why.
We're two fucking dumb idiots.
I just wanted you to say it for the record.
Yeah, dude, I'll be the first one in there, man.
What'd your wife say? So let me ask you. So you just got married. You had 3 years of stability. You had a paycheck.
The difference was we were actually making money at this point.
Yeah, but like before you left, when you left though, like you said you want to go start. You had the itch, right? Yeah. Like, did your wife, was she fully supportive? Or
hell yeah. Okay. Still to this day.
She must be, man. I got to meet her.
She's fucking crazy.
She's a saint.
Never mind.
And so then your buddy though, that you're thinking like, what made you want to go into business with him? Were you guys just high on high on life for a second and like just.
You probably equate to this too, because from what I can, I don't know you that well, but from what I can tell of you, is you're a hard charger, you're a go getter.
Yeah, activator, number one strength.
Yeah, there's not many people who can hang at that level and for an extended period of time. And my ex-business partner was a person where we would do 3-day benders, and like I'm not talking strippers and coke.
Right, you're talking about
3-day benders of three days back to back of doing work and making things happen.
Yep. And
the work ethic instilled in this dude from his past, from his culture, his upbringing, was just as good as mine, if not better.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, cool. And he's 10 years older than me. He had a family, had a wife, had a house at that point in time. Like there was no fucking around for him. He had to get things done, otherwise he was going to put his family at risk. Right. So the first 5 years of that relationship, I was just like, man, I'm here to work, when to get things done. And we were just two technicians making things happen.
Yeah, you're just two superstars, being superstars. And we all know, me and you know where the blind spots are at now, of course, with that.
Yeah.
You're basically just going to wreak more havoc. create more crap, right? Create more problems, or opportunities for someone else to come in, for an integrator to come in and sort all that stuff out and make it go good. So what happened with that business? How did the end go with that?
So it ended in 2020. I wound up selling my half of the company to him. It's still functional today.
Oh, nice. Did you get a good deal? I mean, do you think you made out well, or do you think what's hindsight look like? Or I guess here, let's do this.
Yeah.
When you decided to get out, why did you get out?
Yep. Multiple reasons. We had grown apart. We built a cool business. 5 years into it, I started self-developing really hard. And the reason why I'm a firm believer in life-altering events. 5 years into it, my wife comes to me and says, I'm pregnant. It's like, oh, shit, now it's time for me to be the responsible one for the first time in my life. I was 35, by the way, when I decided to stop being an asshole. So 35 years old, start self-developing heavily. And what wound up happening was, and this is a really key takeaway for someone who's in business with a partner, if they're doing life with a spouse, a family member, I started to basically self-develop and outgrow him very rapidly because he was not doing any self-development whatsoever.
Yeah, that happens a lot. That happens also in marriages too.
It does.
And you said that you started to grow up when you were 35. I don't think I actually really started growing up until I was 39. So kudos to you for, because I even had the kid at like 33.
Yeah.
And thought I was growing up. I thought I was, but I wasn't all the way. I was still that stubborn, full of piss and vinegar, testosterone, activator with no systems and processes. Yeah. And I thought I was doing well because I was making money, but I wasn't really there as good as I could be now that I know the system. So what was that conversation like? You know, because that's another thing that people like us struggle with, having these candid conversations, especially like all of a sudden now, like I'm emotionally intelligent, and then like, but your other guy isn't quite as much. So it can be awkward to have that conversation. How'd you do it?
Yeah. So one of the core values we had established for the company was communication, and it's how I operate anyway. Like even that still to this day, it's a personal core value of mine. At any company that I go into, there will always be two core values that are in place no matter what. And the first one's communication. The second one's profit. We're in business to make fucking money. Don't ever get it twisted, right? And we have to communicate. We have to communicate proactively, both internally and externally, with everyone who's involved. So I had the June of 2020, COVID's kicked off and doing its thing, and I started 75 Hard for the first time. And I got about 3 or 4 days into it, and I was like, holy shit. Like, dude, I got smacked in the forehead with a 2x4 reality. So I got this core value of mine also. I refuse to be average. And I had this piece of artwork hanging in my office in New York, and I'm sitting in front of the computer 3 or 4 days into 75 Hard. I look up, and I see this sign, and I said, oh, fuck me. Like, I am not living in congruency with this core value of I refuse to be average. I got average business, average relationship with my partner, average relationship with friends and family here, and average home, average cars in the driveway, like fucking average everywhere. And it really, really fucking like set me for a loop, right? So I had a couple conversations with the wife. It's like, you know, it's time to make some changes. And we had been talking for almost 2 years about moving out of
Is she okay with being average?
No. She ready to roll. Like, she's literally my ride or die, which is awesome. That's one of the reasons why she stuck around so long. So I had to have a conversation with him. Like, and you also got to understand, like, I had been working on myself so much at this point. I had already started coaching other people and consulting other companies, and I had found my passion. I lost interest in doing the technical work from the car audio 12-volt industry. The GPS tracking industry was very transactional. Most of the clients didn't even want us there. They were required by the federal government to have this device installed in their over-the-road trucks. So we were just a thorn in their ass.
Yeah, it's not cool anymore. Now it becomes like, oh, we have to have it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, cool. We can make money over there. I know how to do it. We're good at it, but it didn't serve me well. Like it didn't fulfill the purpose.
Yeah.
So had the conversation with my partner. Sat down. It was very open, direct communication, right? Like I think it should be. I'm just transparent and blunt about it, and I think it's just, you're better off that way. So put on my big boy pants, went out to breakfast with him one day, and basically said, "Hey, this is what's going on. I'm fucking done. I'm out. This is what I want to do." And he was like, "Oh yeah, cool, I get it, no problem." Had the conversation, and I don't think he took me seriously until I had packed up and actually moved.
So wait, how did you? Wait a second. So I got to back up 1 second. So you guys are both high-powered employees in your own company, I'm assuming, but you go off a little bit and you're doing self-development. You're even doing coaching now, making a little bit of money on the side, right?
Yep.
How did that sit?
I got the company to a point where I didn't have to go in and push buttons and pull levers every day.
Did he care? Did he resent that?
No, he fucking hated it.
Because he resented that you didn't have to do that and you were still collecting a check. He's over here busting he's more in the business, right? Yeah. I'm assuming. And then that's got to create some resentment.
So to this day, he refuses to get out of the field. And that was one of the biggest gripes that we had with each other.
And he may like that. And that's probably okay for him, right? Cool. Like the vision didn't align.
I get it. And it is cool to a point. But at the same point in time, you're also costing the company a lot of fucking money.
Oh, yeah.
For $25 an hour, I can go fill your shoes.
Right. Yep.
Not a couple $100,000 a year.
Yeah, go add some value somewhere else, right? Yeah.
Yeah, real smart dude, you know?
Yeah.
Like really intelligent dude.
Yeah. And again, this is where business partners, spouses, husbands, wives, you got to stay on the same line. As soon as somebody gets out of kilter, we got to either bring them up and keep pulling them with us a little bit or make sure they get on the same page. Or at the end of the day, got to cut ties.
How'd you do reasons.
Yeah, how'd you do it with the bit? Like, you said you sold him the business. Like, you basically quit and then figured it out later, right?
Yeah. So basically, had a valuation done on the company. Had some numbers put together. We went back and forth a bit, some legal contracts, and that was started that in July of 2020, and November 1st, 2020, I was officially out.
So I'd like to talk about that a little bit because I think there's a lot of people out there that wouldn't even know how to go about doing that. They wouldn't even. First of all, it's awkward situation. Was your this business partner, was he happy that you were honest and wanted out, or was he like pissed that now he was going to be left alone? Or
no, I don't think he was happy at all, to be quite honest with you. But I knew that I wasn't going to show up with my best if I was forced to show up any longer. Yeah.
So then to be able to then, first of all right, now what do we do, right? Because he obviously needed that help anyway from like a leadership standpoint, and you were the one probably doing the stuff that he didn't even know how to do. Mm-hmm. That had to be fearful for him. I know it would be fearful for me. Yep. How were you able to like make it all work? I'm sure he had to cut you more of a check than he probably even wanted to or even had. How does all that work? Were you guys 50-50 too? Like, so just give me some insight on like how that works. What things to kind of like look for if you're trying to do something like that.
First step, if you're in business with anybody, you better have a buy-sell agreement in place. And it better be something that you can go in and adjust and revisit every so often. That was one of the things we had done. And we had done that very late into the game. We had done that probably 3 years prior to me actually leaving. And I was there for, I think, 11 years in total. So definitely if you have a partner, I don't care if it's your wife, you have to have some kind of partnership agreement in place, in my opinion. Right? I'm not an attorney. Go hire an attorney and get them to put that stuff together for you. Because that made it very simple and cut and dry. Like, hey, if one of us decides to leave, this is what we're going to do. This is the what needs to happen. Right?
Wow.
And it also puts in there in the document, like, God forbid one of us drops dead tomorrow, what happens? Who takes over? Who gets our half of the company? Who's responsible for X, Y, and Z? Yeah. So that's step one, is to get that in place.
And then was he able just to write a check, or was it like payments, or like how's all that work?
Yeah. So the business wasn't that valuable.
Well, because you two are pretty much the only ones that are in it, right?
No, we had about 25 people on the team. But here was the biggest lesson I learned from that. And I knew this for years prior to leaving the company. There was no recurring revenue model.
No multiplier that you could get.
Nope. It was a service-based company, and when someone called, we went and turned the wrench.
Yeah, what'd you get, 2x, 3x at EBITDA?
Yeah. So about 2x. So basically it's like, hey, let's go and get this work done. And then when you get the project done, oh, fuck, we got to go sell something so we can keep the guys busy next week too. And it was a vicious cycle.
Yeah, and, two of the owners are still pretty much pushing all the buttons. I know you were a little bit out of it, but he takes a bullet, you take a bullet, the business isn't happening, right?
Bingo.
It wasn't like you had it wasn't like you had all these like fully functioning systems, processes, the marketing manager, sales manager, ops manager, finance manager, someone running the company, right? Like those are all things that help add to that multiplier, right?
Yeah. The biggest blessing for us was that we were subcontractors for some really big companies.
And it's kind of like recurring work to a degree.
Yes, it is. It is, but it's not. You don't have control over it. That's
right.
the problem.
Yeah, you're right. That relationship could burn, right?
Yeah. So we would set up and start doing work with a big company. Some of our vendors, some of the companies we were install partners for, like Verizon, AT&T, and a bunch of other like smaller name companies you probably never heard of.
Yeah.
But we would basically go in and we would close them one time. Hey, give us an opportunity to go in and serve your clients. Let us show you that we actually show up on time, do a good job, document everything the way you want it documented, get the install done to the install spec that you want. And from there, once we proved that we weren't a bunch of dipshits, they would start to then literally just open the faucet and say, hey, all of the install work in the New York area or the North Jersey area or the Connecticut area is yours. And that's exactly what we did. So we just went out and got more and more and more of these GPS companies and then started adding technicians in a larger and larger radius at a home base.
Heavy based on operations, not much in sales and marketing.
Bingo.
So it was really just, that's tough. It's tough to control your own destiny.
Yep.
Unless you get a little lucky or, you just keep hanging out with those big shots at Verizon, right? Yeah.
Bingo.
So, all right. So you got, you didn't get much of a valuation. It wasn't like you could be rich. You couldn't retire early, right? You had to go back to work.
There was no retiring from that one.
So what made you go to Texas? What did you do after that? And what was the biggest lesson that you learned on that business?
Any business that I will build or am building moving forward will have some form of recurring revenue. If it doesn't have recurring revenue, I'm not interested.
Gotcha. My integrator keeps talking to me about that too right now. So we're coming up with all kinds of ways to try to, because I have a contracting company and we do residential retail.
Yeah.
So it's really tough to get recurring, but we're working on it. We got maintenance and we're going to be doing some, different things. So we're going to see how it goes. But what'd you do next?
Yep. So I have been coming down to the Dallas area for about, 2 or 3 years. It's coming down here once a month for a mastermind, and I fell in love with the area. So moved down here with my wife and kids, and again, I came down here and I started Step It Up Academy. I think 2 days after being here, I had it incorporated, or I had the LLC filed here in the state of Texas, and started building out all the back-end systems. I was putting together my own version of a coaching mastermind program. And about 30 days or so into it, I got a call from the Break Free Academy team, and they wanted me to come on board as their operations guy. And I did. And I was there for about 20 months.
So you were also a member, I'm assuming, before? Is that how
That's how it started. I was a member.
So you were just flying into Dallas, doing the fly-ins, right? That I see all my friends do, Dan Constantino, Mike Claudio. I saw you guys, all these guys doing it, right? Flying to Dallas, big old pump-up session, little kind of like, it's almost like a boys club. I know there's some girls in there too, right? But at the end of the day, you're coming down there. It's a conference style. You're meeting, networking. Is that how you learned a lot of different skill sets in that last business as well, probably? Yeah,
that was one of the groups that I was involved in heavily, where I learned a lot. And the group has evolved and changed a lot since I first joined. I mean, when I first joined, there was like 6 of us around a table.
Yeah, okay.
So it was very.
So you're like an OG.
Yeah.
You were an OG, and so you took some of that stuff, and then you're like, "Screw it! I like that model." So you created Step It Up Academy at the same time.
Yeah. And then when I got down here, they called and said, "Hey, come run some operations for us," and I did so. I took on that opportunity. I put Step It Up Academy on the back burner for the entirety of my time being there, and this past July, I separated with them. And then went back into full time with Step It Up Academy.
I mean, because you were like the man at Break Free Academy. I mean, there was like I was watching you, and I was like, man, who's this? They call him the integrator. And then I was going through the EOS thing, and I read the book Rocket Fuel like 2 years ago. It totally changed the way I do business.
Yep.
Did you ever read that book Rocket Fuel?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when was your first exposure to Rocket Fuel?
Oh shit, probably 6-7 years ago.
Okay. And when you read it the first time, like I'm sure it has a different meaning than when you even when you read it today, right?
Yep. It's one of those books where even to this day I'll go back to it probably once a year, and I'll rip through the audio version at like 2x speed just so I can get through it quickly.
Yeah.
But there's things It's just the way that books are overall. Like us as humans, we evolve so rapidly, and we don't even realize it, that we can listen to a book or watch a movie or listen to a podcast today, and 6 months from now, listen to it again and get a completely different message out of it, because we've evolved and changed so much in that time period. So it's one of the classics that I go back to quite often to get some information from. When
you first read that book, what did you, when you read that, it talks about the visionary and the integrator. What did you most, were you attracted to, or what did you think that you were?
Visionary. And it's, before we hit the record button on the podcast, we talked about it a bit. In my last company, I had to sit in that seat because nobody else was there. Mm-hmm. Right. So I had to up my visionary tendencies and basically fulfill that role. I really believe that, companies aren't going to exist and operate without somebody sitting in that role in some form or capacity. However, my natural abilities lie in the integrator position. And I think a lot of that has to do with my background. You got to understand, I spent 27 years as a custom car audio installer. We literally integrate aftermarket electronics into a factory system.
Yeah. I mean, like, you're constantly solving the little micro problems, which basically, if you translate that into running a business, all they are is a bunch of micro problems that, like, kind of seem annoying. For me, like, they're the most annoying thing ever. For integrators, they love it, right? They're addicted to it. Like, it's what fuels them, because they look at, like, these compound little tweaks that they make can have maximum, return in the long run, where a guy like me just wants the return in the long run, and we want to go quick, right? And it's like, sometimes it just doesn't work. So what was that like, working with an extreme visionary like Ryan Stewman? I see the YouTube videos. I see, he's got that, that alpha male closer mentality, hardcore closer, right? Yep. It's a strong personality, right? I mean, I would think that he's probably 100 visionary, no integrator. If I had to, like, just judge him, I've never met the guy before, but I know what I'm like. I'm a 94 on the D, I'm a 100i, and then I have no S and C in the disc. Mm-hmm. So, like, what's that like working for a guy like that's all visionary? Probably let you be an integrator pretty well, I would assume. Yeah,
it was a pretty good fit, because if you look at our visionary integrator assessment, or if you look at our disc assessments, they were flip-flopped. And that was one of the reasons that it did work so well together for the time period that we spent together. We complemented each other well. Like, you can't out visionary that dude. That's where his specialty is. And he needed somebody solid to come in and help build the back end and help hold people accountable and hire people and bring people on and figure out, what seats do we need to fill in order to hit the next goal. And that's what I did. And for the 20 months or so that I was there, it worked. It worked damn well. I mean, we grew a tremendous amount.
You guys exploded. I remember 2 years ago, I didn't even hear you guys. Yeah. And, like, now it's like, I don't know, talking about thousands of people in that group now.
Yes, 242% growth in the first 12 months.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because, I mean, like, I'm the visionary at my company, and I always want to grow, let's go. Yeah. And then my integrator's got to be like, whoa, let's pump the brakes there, visionary boy. Like, we got to do this, and there's logic involved, and we got to do, how are we going to do that? I'm like, nah, we'll get it, man. Let's just have faith. How do you make that VI duo, that rocket fuel duo, work? Because you got to be able to push back on the visionary a lot.
Yeah, that's one of the key roles with the integrator, is basically telling the visionary to fuck off.
In a nicer way. See that?
Well, sometimes.
Yeah, I guess it all depends on, the kind of culture that you have. I know your guys' culture was a little bit more, alpha dominant, at Break Free, but but you still got to do it in a way to where, like, they want to keep you, and, like, it's got to be like a good win-win. How do you do that?
It all goes back to communication, open, direct communication. Like, hey, I don't think that's a good reason or a good idea, and here's why. When I went in there, the biggest challenge that I found was, we had two really skilled sales reps at the time. You guys knew what they were doing, were awesome at it. And they were constantly coming up with these new sales bundles, like, every other week. Hey, combine this online course with this and call it this bundle and sell it for this amount of money. And then they'd send the sales guys out there to go sell this shit. I'm like, dude, you're selling this for like $300 or $400, and these guys are spending all damn day following up with people for these offers. Like, why are we selling this stuff over here when we can go and focus on our top tier product, which takes the same amount of time, effort, and energy to go sell, except it costs $50,000 a year and not $300.
Mm-hmm.
So we switched the focus, right? We switched the focus from selling the online course to selling the top tier program, because I come from the retail car audio game, and you came into the retail store and you have, let's go throwback back in the day shit. You got a 1998 Nissan Maxima. You come into my place and I'm going to show you the fanciest, most expensive Alpine flip out radio. When you first walk in, you come in, you're like, oh, I want a radio. Cool. I got this one over here. It's $1,999 plus install. Right, and then you're like, oh, it's out of my budget. Then, okay, cool. Let me show you some other stuff I have.
Step it down.
Yeah, step it down. I call it the top down method. Right, so started pretty much doing that with BFA, and obviously there was a filtering process. We didn't want to let everybody into the top tier program. Shit, not everyone could afford it either. But that really was what we did. We basically just dialed in the focus, is what it was. Like, everything was in place already. We just needed to take things, get rid of the fluff and the bullshit that's really not making us money. It's there. Leverage it for an opportunistic sale. But let's focus on the things that are really going to drive revenue for this company, because we had set a big fucking crazy goal for it was by June of 2021. By 2021, we had to have this amount of members in one of the programs, right? It wasn't a revenue goal. We had figured out exactly how many members we needed to fill in that group. And of course, once you figure out how many members needed to be in there, it was attached to a revenue goal.
Yeah, of course.
The focus was, hey, we need to fill this many people into this seat, not collect this much money.
Yeah, it's one person at a time, right? Because the sales guys, I always think about that. A lot of sales managers get caught up in revenue. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why don't I just focus on deals? And then the revenue will take care of itself. So what made you shift from being the integrator of a recurring revenue profit model, right? Like the what you consider your dream. Like, I'm never going to be in a business that doesn't have recurring revenue. Mm-hmm. What made you decide to take your efforts and to go step it up?
Yeah. So history repeats itself. I've never worked for someone for more than 3 years. Right. And I knew going into that relationship that it wasn't going to be a long-lasting relationship. Mm-hmm. It got to the point where we just weren't seeing eye to eye any longer. I wasn't necessarily in agreement with where he wanted to take the company. And dude's got every right to take it wherever the fuck he wants. He's the owner. He's the founder. He's been doing it for a long time.
Absolutely.
But it was better off for me to basically get out of the way. And I felt the same way when I left my last company too. It was like, you know what? Let me get out of the way. Okay, because I can get out of the way and you guys can be fine over here without me. And it was a repeat of that, and not in a bad way. At least I didn't think it was in a bad way. But basically split there, and then July of this year went back into Step It Up Academy full time. And doing a couple different things. We got coaching mastermind program, doing live events, doing some fractional COO work as well, which is limited because it takes a lot of my time. So it's got to be for the right person.
You are doing it yourself?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were teaching other people how to do it. I actually hired a fractional integrator when I went through the EOS process, and that was definitely really helpful because it helped me bridge that gap between I had an old COO that had worked for me that I didn't even know what a COO was. I just hired someone because I knew it needed somebody to take care of the numbers and the operations, and I'll handle sales and marketing.
Yep.
And then when I realized I went down the EOS trail, I realized this guy, yes, he may be good at that stuff, but the culture was eroding. He wasn't we weren't aligned on the same vision. So we parted ways, and then there was this gap, right? Like there was just that dead zone before I could bring in the other integrator. And for that 3 months, my EOS implementer recommended, he's like, they have these fractional integrators. And I'm like, what? And at the time, this was 2 years ago, I'm searching everywhere. I cannot see. There was nothing online. There was only 3 people on LinkedIn totally back 3 years ago that had the term fractional integrator. And I hired him, and, it wasn't cheap. It was like $200 an hour. And for me back at the time, I was like, holy cow, that's a lot. Yeah. How many hours you got to work? He's like, dude, I can get it done in 7 to 10 hours a week. I'm like, you're hired. I said, it's just a Band-Aid, right? It's just a little transition. I thought no matter what, he's going to be able to at least help train the new guy coming in, at least on the EOS way. Planned on hiring a superstar anyway, but, chances are he's not really familiar with EOS. He's probably doing things the old corporate way, which is fine. But the guy I knew that I wanted was going to have the culture and the passion. He was going to get the system because it's so simple. The system's for guys like me. It ain't for guys like him or guys like you. You guys can handle complex situations and business. But for me, to be able to operate with you so I'm not driving you insane, I need that simple EOS system to operate in. And so that's what I did. You know, I had a fractional integrator for a couple months, and then he stayed on board for like another month or two to help onboard the integrator.
Yep.
And yeah, it was a significant investment on top of the implementer, you know, spending, you know, $5-6 a day on that, you know, 6 times a year. But to me, it was worth it, right? It was an investment into my knowledge, my learning. I learned a lot from how he handled situations. Where do you come at in, like, you know, working for all these different people, and now finally, you know, do you have any partners on this Step It Up Academy? You're by yourself now.
It's me.
Right? You've realized that, like, I'm not doing this anymore. It's going to be me. Now, are you the visionary at your company or the integrator? Or are you doing both right now?
Yeah, so I'm doing both right now, but here's what I feel happening already is that, again, I got to go and fill that visionary role right now. So my visionary tendencies are bubbling back up to the surface more so than ever.
Yeah,
they have to.
You got the juice, you got the ideas, man. You got to stay relevant. You got to stay competitive. There's a market out there. I mean, like, you know how many coaching and mastermind people are out there? You guys are like a dime a dozen, bro. Like, tell me how you're any different than everybody else.
I actually show people how to do it.
It's not just sales and marketing. It's not just smoking
it's not
mirrors.
Just sales and marketing.
It's not smoking mirrors and beat your chest.
No, it's not. Hey, come in here and let's have a good networking event and drink a couple beers and go home. Right? It's no, come in here. We're gonna get together. We're gonna spend some time. There's one-on-one coaching to it. There's in-person events. But my big thing with my events is I'm not just going to tell you the theory or, hey, this is why you should go and do this and implement it into your life. Like, no, we're actually going to break it down and show you exactly how I've done this in the past. And if it's something that I haven't done, I'm going to bring in an expert who can then show you exactly how they've done it. Right. And that's the biggest piece of the puzzle, I think, that's missing with most coaching mastermind or even events out there. All the events are high level. Like, you know, hey, just say you do some of your sales and marketing. Just say you get fucking leads in the door. Cool. Awesome. Is it necessary? Sure it is. But when it comes to the real high level stuff, nobody's got the balls to go in there and show you exactly how they're doing things.
It's not that they have the balls. They don't know how. But listen, let me just tell you, I have no idea. People are listening too right now. I have no idea what my integrator does. Like, I don't know how he does it. I just know that he gets it done. He's like the cleaner, man. He's like the guy that you send in somewhere. And like in the movies, like we're like, you know, the Pentagon like sends in like the guy to go kill all the people. Like, I don't know how he does it. He just goes out and freaking smashes goals. I mean, he just goes out and smashes it, and he works diligently. He's focused, and he just goes and goes. He's like the Energizer Bunny. But like my whole job is just to keep energizing, right? Keep keep that vision alive, make sure everybody knows they have a purpose and a passion, honor that person, right? I think a lot of visionaries struggle with honoring the integrator and making sure that the integrator is the star of the show. I told Rob last week, I said, dude, they're going to write books about you one day. I said, I'm going to make sure that they write books about you one day, about what you're going to be able to take big fish to the next level. So it's all going to be about you. I said, I'm already going to get enough of the pomp and circumstance because I'm going to be out there on the TV and the cameras and all that. And he doesn't even want any of that. But like I said, the books, the legacy is going to be in how we did it. You know, because everybody's got a hype, man. What they say, there's 4 visionaries for every 1 integrator.
4-to-1 ratio.
So like that's
a fucked up stat too, because yes, there may be 4-to-1, but that 4-to-1, they don't always align with each other.
Well, right, and the 4 visionaries again. There's weak visionaries too. Like I you know, everyone wants to now. Visionary is a trendy term now. Yeah. When I read that book, I immediately got rid of CEO off my title because I only had that CEO title to impress my mom because I dropped out of college just like you did. So I was like, hey, mom, I'm the CEO. I hated that title anyway because I was like, I know I ain't no CEO, man. Like I'm barely like. But when I read that book, term visionary, I'm like, yeah, that's me. Like I'm 100% visionary. There is not like I'm like hyper-focused visionary. Like I do it all, but I also play by the rules, or at least I try to as much as I can. And I sent my integrator Rob to the Rocket Fuel University, like a master class. because I'm trying to get him. I want him to be able to push back, right? Like I want him to be like, you know, like you have that both, so you know how to handle. You know how to handle like guys like me. Obviously, you worked with Ryan Stewman for 2 years. Mm-hmm. That dude is on fire, right? Like that dude is like, you are like, it's impressive that you made it 20 months, brother. Like from everything I know, because I mean, for me, I almost felt like I was in so much pain before I like found rocket fuel and EOS that like I'm just like, all right, yeah, man, let's just do it your way because my way sure does not work. Mm-hmm. So it's like I almost like have given up, like not given up, but like now I've got this recharged energy because before it was like a little bit more delusion. Yeah. Like when I would like get up and be like, we're doing this and we're doing that. I had no plan on how we're going to do it, but now I can see it. So now I speak with even more confidence, and now we can honor each other's strengths and different blind spots that we have, and we look out for each other, and it's a beautiful relationship. So I'm excited to see as you grow your company, if you decide to hire a visionary or hire a bunch of integrators, because it sounds to me like your company is going to be based on integrators. Like you're going to need multiple integrators in your business, but not necessarily to integrate your business, but to show people how to integrate theirs. So it'll be interesting to see how you work out. Is there fractional visionaries out there? I'm for hire, just so you know. I could be a fractional visionary.
I've never heard of it. So
listen, let's do it. I want to be your fractional visionary. I'll do it just to see like what kind of results we can get.
Yeah.
And see what happens. I think that would be good. But cool. Well, listen, I appreciate your time today. I know we're at the end of our time. I feel like I could talk to you all day. I'm super fascinated by integrators, by the way. I don't know if you could tell, but like, I think we should do another podcast where I actually pick your brain more on the details of the how, because we didn't even get to cover that, right? We just know you're the cleaner in the room and that you just get everything done. We still don't know how. Can people tune into your podcast to understand how?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Step It Up Entrepreneur.
Is that how they find out? I mean, like you guys talk about the details on how to do stuff like this?
Yeah, occasionally. I do. Yeah, listen, I do a lot of different things in the podcast. I do interviews like this. I do some stuff where I go in there. Like, for instance, last week I had a client who pissed me off. So I went in and I fucking ranted on the
gorilla rant, like a little Mike Claudio gorilla rant. Yeah.
That's why Mike and I get along so goddamn well, because we can do that all day long. But yeah, I do give away some of the how on there. But I really reserve the how for my in-person events. I do them quarterly. They're called Step It Up Academy Live. Next one's going to be February 8th and 9th here in Dallas. Is that open
to the public or only just to your members?
Yeah, no, it's open to the public.
Nice.
Yeah.
When is it? February 8th and 9th?
Yeah, February 8th and 9th.
All right. And it's going to be in Dallas?
Yeah, I'll be here in Dallas. I got to lock in the venue still, which will happen in the next probably.
What's the ticket going to go for? Let's sell some tickets.
Yeah, so the ticket is $497 for general admission, and it's $1,000 for a VIP.
That's not bad for 2 days.
Nope.
Dude, listen, I just spent $2,500 to send my guy to a one-day rocket fuel thing, and I'm sure yours is probably going to be better because it's going to be a little bit more raw. It's not going to be as many rules. You're probably going to get right.
If you don't like 4-letter words, don't come.
Yeah, well, I can tell. Listen, I like to hang out with Gary Vee, and he's used to that. I try not to swear as much anymore because that was like the old Ben. And my mom doesn't appreciate it, so I'm all for everybody expressing themselves how they want. But I like that $1,000, man.
So
could a visionary learn from could a visionary learn from going there?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. My last one, we had a stacked room. It was probably a 50-50 split, visionaries, integrators, which is cool. So Gary Vee, I got to hear him speak at an Infusionsoft conference a bunch of years ago. And they're a bunch of like hard charging Mormons from Arizona and whatnot. And they paid him a bunch of money to come speak at the event. And they flat out told him before he got on stage, don't curse. Like, and those who know who Gary Vee is,
he gave him his money. He probably just handed the check back and said, I'll get back on the plane. Because like, how do you even do that?
So he's on stage and he's probably 25 or 30 minutes into his speech. And he's like, he was doing a Q&A or something, and he had something that he really had to say, and it involved several 4-letter words. And he basically said, on stage in front of this entire massive company, he's like, yeah, they just asked me not to do this before I got on stage, but fuck it. And he just went on a tear. And I'm like, oh, Lord, they're going to ask him for his money back.
And he'll probably have empathy for it. And he'll understand where they're coming from. And if there's any way that he can provide value in another way, I'm sure you probably would have been able to pull it off. But that's my buddy Gary V. All right, I got 5 questions I ask every guest. Rapid fire. You're on an island completely by yourself. Okay, you got to go away forever. You're not going to see anybody. What book do you take with you?
What book do I take with me? You know something? I probably, and this is not normally my answer, I'd probably say the Bible.
Nice.
Yeah.
Listen, it's a very popular answer on this, the Big Fish Cares podcast.
Yeah, I think there's just so many lessons about life and in business in that book that it would help out in more ways than I can imagine.
And like that you did, remember earlier in the podcast when you said every time you read something, you get a little bit something different out of it? The Bible is the ultimate version of that, right? So it's good. I like that. What movie are you taking with you?
What movie am I taking with me? Something that's got to be entertaining and funny. I'm a car guy. Let's go with Gone with 60 Seconds.
Gone in 60 Seconds. All right. Yeah. And then what about a restaurant? You can put any restaurant there you want, man. I know you've been to a lot of cool places. You've probably been to a lot of cheap places, fancy places, local places, national. You pick.
I'll go with Prince Umberto's Italian food, Long Island. A little small mom and pop place.
What's your favorite thing there?
Chicken parm.
Chicken parm. All right. So if you're in Long Island, Prince Umberto's.
Yeah, they got vodka sliced pizza too.
And then you're allowed to
with vodka sauce.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. So if you're allowed to go one place for a week, you can go anywhere in the world.
Easy, Cabo.
You're going to Cabo. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Why do you like Cabo so much?
I've been there probably half dozen times at this point, and like every time I go there, it's just that much fucking cooler.
There's people in the roofing industry are starting to get hip to Cabo, and now they're starting to have conferences down there. And
that was my first experience there. Was a conference at a mega mansion, and they're not as expensive as people think they are, which is really cool.
So when are you gonna get the jet, and then like get me to pay for your jet to go to Cabo and get the big house? When are we doing that?
Who's to say it's not in the works already?
That's the thing now, man. I see what's happening out there. I'm just like, Grant Cardone, like all these people are doing all kinds of crazy stuff like that. All right, and the last question: you get 24 hours. You're allowed to fly one person into this island and spend 24 hours with them. It could be somebody dead, it could be somebody alive, somebody famous, somebody that only you know. You tell me who's coming, who you spending 24 hours with.
Tim Grover.
Tim Grover, the author of Relentless.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
I'd have him get my mind right so I can get through that situation.
Yeah, that's impressive. Wow, listen to this guy. I mean, you're dialed in. You're dialed in. Listen, I really appreciate you being here. What's the best way for someone to get a hold of you?
StepItUpAcademy.com.
StepItUpAcademy.com.
Yeah, it's a website. You can learn more about what I got going on there. There's links to my social media, and of course, there's Contact Us forms. So if you want to learn more about working with us or having a conversation, it's all there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here. If there's anything I can ever do to help add value to your business or to your life, let us know. And if you guys listening got value out of this podcast, please like, subscribe, comment below, whatever you guys got to do. I'm going to start promoting this thing next year. We're going to get this thing off the ground. But appreciate our guest today, and we'll be back next week on another edition of the Big Fish Cares podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Big Fish Cares podcast.